so pleased to have you join us today. I have such a great respect for you as the journalist you are, and also the fighter that you have become over the years for workplace rights. So thank you for imparting your hard-earned wisdom today for our audience.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. And I know that a lot of them are probably facing some issues that, you know, in addition to the struggle that they're facing with their health, potentially, then when you add on a work issue, it makes it, just very, very hard.
Very hard. And earning a living is never easy. That goes without saying, even under the best conditions. But when you are battling chronic illness such as endometriosis, that can cause debilitating, crippling symptoms that can take you out of the workforce or limit your ability to complete certain tasks. Like, how do you navigate that, especially in a corporate culture that isn't so empathetic to those things, generally speaking?
Yeah. I had heard of this woman who had a brain tumor, actually, and it was her workplace that was making her feel even worse than her brain tumor was, because she had so much pressure at work, would come home and cry at night because she felt like she was sort of being pushed out, which I think, once you're not up to a task, then an employer may target you, for dismissal.
Right. So how does one, first of all, identify that what they're going through could possibly be discriminatory, gender discriminatory? Maybe it's health discrimination. How does one even assess, like, is this up to up to any kind of standard, or am I just feeling a little bit sensitive? Because there is that, right? There's always that questioning of, am I just being sensitive, or is something really legally not okay with what's going on?
Right. And I think there would be like a lot of gaslighting in the situation too. Like, it's just in your head. You're just imagining things. You're going through health issues. So what you're feeling is not, you're just being emotional. That's another thing, especially for women, right? You're just, you don't know how to toughen up, kind of thing.
Right.
But I think there are ways where you can tell. You start documenting, maybe make yourself in your planner, if you have one online or on paper, whatever works best for you. Write down if something happens that just doesn't feel right, because your intuition, I think, is huge. You can kind of wish things away or push them away, but if they keep happening, it might not be a coincidence. And you better have documentation, because if you can't document it, and also the power in numbers. Has it happened to someone else? Has someone else gone through a health issue at your workplace? And what was their treatment like? Because there is power in numbers. So I would say document to other people, but be very careful. Keep your circle very small, because you don't want someone going to the boss and saying like, oh, she's questioning this or whatever, because then you can get yourself, make yourself more of a target.
Right. And when you save document, does that mean journal? Does that mean save emails? Does that mean record?
Oh, I think all of the above. But particularly emails, I think you could say you'll remember a conversation, but put it in writing, right? If you have an issue with something that's happened, if something was presented that doesn't feel right, you're not sure if it's legal or not, because a lot of the are illegal don't feel that bad. It's the emotional part that sort of the it might feel toxic, but it's not illegal. But the things that don't feel toxic might be illegal. So it's an interesting line there. So write down everything, but document and put it in writing, because if you say you had a conversation with someone, they could deny having a conversation. And the voice memo on your phone can be your best friend. Stick it in your pocket, stick it in your purse. When you have a conversation that you suspect might not go well, put that voice memo on. It might just be, and there might be a policy against doing it at your workplace. So don't tell anyone you're doing it.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing about laws, right? You have to know what's allowed and what's not allowed. Different states allow one party to know that they're being recorded and the other one doesn't. So it might not be necessarily admissible in a court of law.
Yes.
But in a court of arbitration, you never know what can be played or how valuable tapes can be. I mean, those kinds of recordings have helped secure people's livelihoods, and they've also helped oust some very bad, for lack of a more inflammatory word, very bad figures in history. So going back to documenting, in journalism, you always have to corroborate and be able to back up any kind of allegations your sources are making. It's the same thing with legal claims. You need to be able to say, well, Brad wasn't so nice to me. Well, how wasn't he not nice to you? And show either an email exchange, a continued pattern that you documented, a voice memo, like you mentioned, because the word against someone else holds little, if no weight. So you do always have to think about anything where you could potentially have litigation as a way to protect yourself, knowing that you will be just as judged as those people that you could potentially be making claims against.
Yeah, and it's a shame that it's come to that, right? Because I think we all start our career and you have these great ideas of, if I work hard, I'll be rewarded. Like, just work hard, I'll work hard, and earlier than anybody else, leave later than anyone else, and I will have a great, successful career. But it doesn't always work that way. So you have to kind of be cognizant of the fact that things do change, and you have to keep your eyes open and your ears open too.
Right. And that's an interesting thought, and something that I myself have gone through now, having, well over a decade in journalism and
Mhm.
being in the workplace, that I had a very Pollyanna belief that if you worked hard, you would
Mhm.
achieve more. And if you behave kindly to others, they would behave kindly to you, and
Yeah.
everything would be blissful and peaceful. And only those that were quote unquote troublemakers would have anything difficult kind of coming to their path. Of course, this is through the lens of a 22-year-old versus now
Exactly.
a 39-year-old who's quite, has quite the life experience behind her. But what would you say to someone that is entering the workforce right now and believes that motto? Because we don't want to take away people's
No,
optimism, but there has to be like a healthy balance of realistic optimism to it. What would your advice be for someone entering the workplace now?
I think it's important to have mentors who are older because they have experience and institutional knowledge, and I think that's important. So you can benefit from them, just like an older worker can benefit from someone who's younger. We can all learn from each other, and there's room for both in the workplace. But I think you do have to have your eyes opened a little bit more than, you know, when you first come into the workforce, you just think, oh, it's a straight shoot to the top if I work hard. It's not that way. And one of the things I would say is look at the top of a company that you're going to go into. If it all looks the same, and I'm talking probably, a lot of white men, which nothing, no offense to white men, but if that's all there is in the boardroom, that's where the decisions are being made. So there aren't women in there. There aren't people of color in there. There aren't people who have health issues in there. So those decisions are going to be made through a different lens than maybe if you had a more diverse group in that boardroom.
You've had quite a story tenure in broadcast media. What has been one of the more shocking lessons that you have personally dealt with, generally speaking?
I think when you find out people aren't who they profess to be, there's a lot of people in any business, I think, who are willing to play the game to get ahead. And you just wonder where the ethics are and the morals are, because at the end of the day, you have to look yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who are willing to play a game to get ahead. And I mean, it goes from, we've all heard of like sleeping your way to the top or whatever. We've seen people who have done that too. But I'm not even talking that. I'm just talking the corporate politics, the yes men, the people who will do whatever it takes, say whatever it takes to get ahead. We've seen people rise to the top doing that. But at the end of the day, once your career goes away, you still have to look at yourself in the mirror. And a lot of times those people will be like, I sleep great at night. And it's like, really? Do you? Because you shouldn't be sleeping so well if you're behaving the way you are.
Right. No, that says a lot. And I've definitely had those run-ins myself, where you do have to question also the whole idea of a career. I mean, a career is, for so many, it's not a job, right? A career is something you're passionate about. It gives you intrinsic value. It's something you're striving for to get better and level up. A job is something you do just to make the ends meet. But if you're passionate about what you do, and then you have to deal with these battlefields, and like you said, the corporate politicking and everything that goes along with it, you do sometimes question like what happens to people's moral ethos and why they're okay doing whatever it takes for what exactly, right? Because at the end of the day, life is very short. So you would like to be able to put your head on that pillow and really feel okay about how you've lived your life. But maybe those people don't have the moral compass to care.
No, I think a lot of people don't, unfortunately, which is surprising. But then there are people who surprise you who really do. So that's nice. I think, you were talking about someone starting out. I think it's, definitely still work hard. Work is called work because you're supposed to work. It's not, it's not supposed to be easy. So I think no matter what narrative somebody is creating about you at any point during your work career, just keep your head down, work hard, don't gossip, right? As much as you can stay away from all that stuff. And just do your job and do it to the best of your ability. You kind of leave people with little room. If they can't come after your character, then you're doing okay, I think. I think if you can come out of your career with your character intact, even if people try to attack you left, right, and center, you're doing okay. So.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. And I think you said an interesting point too about keep your head down.
Mm-hmm.
That was something my dad always told me was the upper level mediocre.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
He would say, don't be the top because the top of the top sometimes gets sliced very easily. And if you're making too much or doing too much, there's a lot of people who don't want to work as hard as you. So you're going to make them look bad. So it's almost finding your stride of like doing a great job, working very hard, doing what's expected of you, and then some, but also staying away, like you said, from the gossip machines. If you go to the happy hour, always have to leave after 45 minutes to an hour before people get sloppy.
Yes.
These are like the little life methods that you don't learn in college, but that serve you in the workplace.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing a different mindset when it comes to work, just with the younger generation, right? Like they're putting their limits down, which, we would work 15-hour days and be like, oh, do you want me to work 20? Like now it's just like, oh, I work 8 hours. I turn off my phone on the weekend. It's like, what?
Yeah.
It's a different mentality. I think there's probably a balance somewhere in the middle of that is good. But they realize that there's more to life than work, which I think is good because for us, it was just work.
Yes. So. Yeah. And also I think the pandemic has changed the view because people are realizing they could work remote. They could be multitasking and accomplish just as much. Going back to our original point about workplace discrimination, we talked about documenting, we talked about having evidence. Once you feel pretty confident that you are indeed being discriminated against, do you go to human resources?
No. Did I say that quick enough? No. The only reason I would say, and I should preface this, you may want to just so you can say you took the appropriate steps, but don't tell them what you have. Don't say, I recorded this conversation. I have this email. Don't tell them what you have. Just say, I think this is happening so you can document that you did the appropriate channels. But then I think that the next course, if you're pretty confident, you have to find an employment lawyer. And they'll ask you a series of questions, and they'll probably say, that's toxic. It's not illegal. That's illegal. That's not good. And then they will decide whether you have a case, and they may give you suggestions on how to proceed from there.
Okay. And then again, there's also another thing. So let's say you get there's two different ways you go about this. You go to HR. HR says, okay, we're going to remedy this for you, but you need to sign this non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
Non-disclosure agreements, for anyone out there, would you mind explaining what they are and what they do for companies?
Well, the first thing is human resources. You have to remember, very nice people work in human resources. A lot of times they may be rooting for you individually, but they work for the company. They get paid for the company. They're paid to protect and to tell them what is happening with their employees and to know which employees are going to speak out or speak up if they see something wrong. So just go into HR knowing that. And then any agreement, do not sign anything, I think, without having a lawyer take a look at it, because a lot of times agreements, even severance agreements, are designed to keep you quiet, sometimes for a year, sometimes for 2 years, sometimes for the rest of your life. So, and you just don't know because you're kind of in a period of duress, especially if you're going through a chronic health issue, right? Like it's just like, oh, let me just be done.
Yeah.
And you sign your thinking, okay, I'll just put that chapter away, not realizing how much you have limited yourself and your ability to protect yourself in the future. So, yeah, everything has to be looked at by an employment lawyer, I think,
Yeah.
before you.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice because NDAs very much presented in so many things, so many places. Like you mentioned, severance agreements. I know plenty of people who just got let go in like a mass layoff, and the first thing they're given is, "Here's your severance," but the end page is an NDA, and in order to get your severance, you have to sign this. Yeah, sure, go have a lawyer look it over, but then you can't leave with your check today.
Right.
And people
And
are
you get stressed out, right? So, and you
stressed
may be
and
getting 3 months, but your paycheck's stopping. So you're worried about having 3 to 6 months to live. You may have just signed away your ability to ever speak about your experience ever.
right.
So I think NDAs do have their place in companies for proprietary information. For, if you're developing a product or something, of course you don't want anyone speaking about that. But if it's to cover up bad behavior or potentially illegal behavior, those should go away. They should have gone away yesterday. But
Yeah.
You need lawmakers to speak up about that.
Right. And some corporations are doing away with them, and,
Mhm.
and that's an excellent thing. Wells Fargo's done that. There are a lot of companies that are following suit. President Biden is trying to get rid of NDAs on a federal level. So there's a lot of movement forward, but until it's really forward, you always have to look out for your best interest. And I'm so appreciative of you taking the time to discuss a little bit, because it's such a large issue, about workplace discrimination and how to identify it, recognize it, and then try to do your best to resolve it.
Yeah, I wish everybody was going through it. It has to be such an emotional time anyway. You're dealing with a chronic health issue, and then to have this compounding that. But just protect yourself, trust your intuition as well.
Thank you so much.